Hi, it's Alan and Xivi from West 3D, and we are going to talk about some build tips and tricks and mods for your V0 because I am about halfway through my build. Xivi's already given me some really good information, and we're going to take a look at what she's done on her V0 and try and get some inspiration and ideas. So let's check it out.
Yeah. So where do you want to start? Like, what do you want to kind of know about first?
So this is a V01 at the moment, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's about half V01, half V02. All of the internals are basically V02 at this point. So I've got the updated gantry mounts or gantry idlers. I forget what the official term is. We'll just open this up so I can touch things. And so I've also got a new mini StealthBurner cowling for the orbiter. I went ahead and did the orbiter instead since that's what I had originally on my 0.1 and I like it, so I'm just stuck with that. I've also done the sequins on the mini StealthBurner, so that was fun. I don't have them lit up right now because I can't connect to mainsail for reasons, so they're just off right now, but they're in there. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, and I've got a big update. I was very excited about this, was the new Z end stop mount. Having it on the bottom just makes homing a lot easier. It's a little bit simpler, and then doing Z offset's a lot more straightforward because you're just kind of working from the max value and then figuring out what the distance is from there. So it's that I had installed within like 24 hours of the V02 release because I was just very excited for that. I'm trying to think what else. New AP drives. What else? I think that's it. I already had the Kirigami on the 0.1, so obviously stuck with that. It's a way easier kind of maintenance and install piece. Obviously makes the bed a little bit easier to work with too because it stays rigid. And then I've got my Kirigami LED that's chained up with my fancy rainbow matchsticks. Showing off the teal right now because I obviously like teal. So trying to think what else. I think that's mostly the updates for 0.2. And then yeah, everything on the outside is a mostly 0.1 mods, if I'm being honest. I've got 0.1 stock panels, or the stock doors still with the handle, and then I've got the skirts still are 0.1. The two side panels are actually the ZeroPanels, which make pretty much everything on this printer a little bit easier because if you have to do a lot of maintenance or switching out parts like I have, especially during the 0.2 upgrade, it just gives you a little bit of extra convenience. It also lets you have a little bit of foam on the side, so that helps with chamber temps. And then I've got like a modded 0.1 top hat with a top hat extension piece. So this is actually, if you go to the printables link, this is technically one that's supposed to kind of go back like the 0.2 top hat does with the hinges, but I didn't want to reprint the back parts for the 0.1 top hat, so I did the top without the hinges. So mine's still removable like the 0.1 is, but I have extra space with this extension basically for my umbilical mod. So we can talk about that in a second, but definitely need the extra space for that if you don't want to break wires or just generally have issues scratching up your top acrylic. The other thing I have is side handles. These were for 0.1 ZeroPanels. And I think you can still use these on the 0.2, so it's kind of a neutral mod there.
Yeah. And you're also running a separate set of daylights, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. They're also not lit up right now because it's actually controlled through my Klipper expander, which is yet another mod that I went ahead and did. And again, since I can't connect to the network right now, I can't turn them on, but they're very bright. I actually usually run mine at 15% power because anything brighter than that is honestly a little bit overwhelming. 50%, they're very, like, you'll see everything on your plate. I doubt for something as small as this, you'll want to run it at 100% unless you want to have like a secondary lamp in your space, which works too, multi-purpose. So yeah, got that installed. We can talk about like the electronics or...
Yeah, and what filters are these that you're using?
And something to keep in mind too, I always remember this when talking about these filters, is a lot of these mods are really just derivatives of other mods that I kind of adapted to my own needs. And so the Zerofilters is a great example of that, where the original mod is just the Nevermore. But somebody was smart enough to make the Zerofilters. I think that's Heart K. Correct us if we're wrong. Might be. But somebody went ahead and remixed his Zerofilters and made a 4020 blower version of it, which I thought was kind of perfect for me because I didn't want to run a duo for the Nevermore 5. It's too big for me. And I like the symmetry of just being able to mount these on each side and have air blowing from both sides. I don't know how much it's impacted my chamber temps, but they do get pretty high, and it usually helps if I have those running. These, they're really cute. It's just a tiny little cartridge. It's basically the same thing as an Evermore. It's just different form factor. Slide out, you've got your carbon in there. I've got like a tea bag on the bottom just so it doesn't get super messy. And then my very, very gross looking super glue job for the magnets. I probably didn't need to super glue them in, but just in case I went ahead and did, since that's per the instructions. And then something else that's cool about these, I don't think this is required if you want to run these, but if you've got a little TPU, you can also glue that in there, and it makes a nice little kind of like grommet gasket. Yeah. So it's a neat little filter, and it definitely works. And it's perfect for something like this, because again, it doesn't take up a bunch of space on the side, and you don't have to cut up a fan for the Nevermore V4, which is pretty much why I didn't do that one. So yeah, love the Zerofilters. They work really nicely. Yeah, and you can see my bad VHB job on the back.
Right.
Other things that I did, I guess, inside the printer, I did go ahead and upgrade to our Berserker rails. I do think it made, like, they do run a little bit smoother. It does seem a little bit stiffer. I don't have any play in my X carriage, which is nice. I had a little bit of that with the LDO that I had running originally on it. And then I went ahead and did, this is not like a required mod by any means. Disclaimer, I did this because I really like trusses, and this is a truss, but I did the lightweight V0 beam from Premium Basics, I think. First back in the day when Fabrico first had like a first run. And I went and installed that. Again, it's not really like a performance enhancer necessarily. I think you can probably get a little bit faster accelerations out of it, but it just looks really cool, so I had to. Something that's a small, you're not going to really worry too much about deflection or anything, so you're good. Good to run it if you think it's full. And then I've got, I guess top hat off would be good for this. Orbiter looks very cool. I just like everything about it. It's treated me very well. That's all I really have to say about that. It's just a good extruder. I've got a semi-custom umbilical harness on here with an umbilical frame PCB. I guess we can go ahead and turn on the printer so you guys can see that. Don't judge my wiring job. This was also some of the Allens whose you can tell the difference because they actually look good. But yeah, this is the toolhead PCB for the umbilical mod from Timmit. It's got basically all of your toolhead connections, so your thermistor, your heater, all of that good stuff that you would normally connect from the toolhead. And it combines them into a 14-pin harness, similar to the harnesses that you see on the bigger printers like Trident 2.4. And then there's a frame PCB on the back. I'll try not to touch it, but it mounts right underneath a little plate that you print for it. And then you run your bone tube through that. So for me, it just makes it easy. I've changed out my tool head and my hot end like 5 or 6 times since I built this thing. And so it's been super easy to just be able to take those connections out, switch out what I need on the front, and then put them right back in without having to run all of those wires back through to the back. So it's been super nice. Oh, thank you. Don't want that shit off on accident. Would be very bad. So here's my electronics bay. I did my best with wiring. I had never wired my own printer before, so this is what I could do. So I did go ahead and upgrade to the Pico board. That's BOM for 0.2. The reason I did that mostly with space management. I just want more space back here. Eventually I want to toss a 5-volt PSU somewhere. So we'll find space for it someday. But I knew that was going to let me do that. It's also got 3 fan pores, which is nice if you don't want to have to slice your electronics bay. Excuse me, that's a slice, a splice. Your electronics bay fan with something else if you're still using the SKRV2. I've also got the super, super handy dandy Klipper expander. So I won't go through all of the ports, but basically if you want an extra chamber thermistor or extra MOSFETs to run, like for example, I have my Zerofilters running off of these. It's a really good way to get you extra ports for stuff like that you're going to run out of quickly on most stock boards that you would use for this printer. So super handy. What else do I have for? Oh, and I have my daylights running off of another MOSFET on here, so that's another good way to add all kinds of lighting. Chamber thermistor, and then yeah, I've also got a mountain on a Klipper expander duct. You can find it on printables too. Lots of good mods on there. But this was definitely for me the best solution in terms of wire management and just getting the Klipper expander back here. It replaces, obviously, if you're using a wire duct, and it's really well designed. There's no chance really of breaking the little side things that come out where you could thread your wires through. And they just screw in on like a back plate that you VHP to your panel. So it's a nice solution, especially if you've got, I think the person who designed this also had the umbilical frame PCB, and so those wires can just run right through the top here. And yeah, it makes just wiring management a lot easier. Let's see, I've got some Wagos because I needed to run some things together, and I've got some Wago mounts for those. We can link those. I'll have to find them, but they're typically available in the V0 channels. A lot of people ask about Wago mounts, so it doesn't take long to find them. And yeah, this is all 0.1 setup so far. I do plan on updating my skirts here soon, so that'll happen, but right now I just kind of have 0.1 setup with some Wagos and the electronics bay fan that they added. I also have a smart filament sensor. Mostly got this because I'm used to it coming from a Prusa and I like having one. I think it's a nice convenience factor, and also a lot of people recommended it. It's got not just the filament detection, but it also detects jams and things like that. That's kind of where the smart part comes from. So I found that to be useful. I haven't needed it yet that I know of, but it's been nice insurance knowing I have that there. I have it mounted a little bit differently, I think, than some people do on their V0s. I've got a mount that I got from a 2.4 repo. Again, we can find the link for that. I've done so many of these. I have like a whole set of bookmarks we'll have to post. But I basically replaced the back panel little mount thing on here and pushed it as far down as I could. And so when I have spools on here, the idea is that the filament just feeds right through that. Works really well. I thought I might have some issues with my tube routing, but that's been fine so far. But yeah, it's a good little piece of hardware to have for like peace of mind. So
Mine has saved me a couple of times. It's never been an issue of like a filament run out, but filament tangles, spool tangles,
yeah, tingles.
Yeah, and it's really nice to just have it pause my print. I can go in, reload the filament and go on my way.
Exactly. It makes everything a little bit more convenient. But yeah, that's my electronics bay. Some special stuff going on, but I think it works. It works for me. Something else I didn't think that I mentioned that some people may have noticed is I do have the EPDM feet for the printer. They're bigger than stock, so it looks a little silly right now. I'm hoping the new feet will fix the look a little bit so it doesn't look like they're sticking out so far, but it's made a nice difference just in terms of like resonance, noise management, and just resonance in the printer itself. Obviously, there's just more surface area, they're thicker, they're bigger, so obviously a little bit of an upgrade for me. I thought it was worth the weird look instead of the tiny feet. So yeah, I think that's all the fancy stuff for the most part I've done. EPDM belts, I like them. I do like them. I think it's worth the little bit of extra money. They seem to be a bit more rigid and I don't know, they're just not as stretchy. You can tell there's a little difference.
And they're black.
And they're black, exactly. But that was a big part of it. I'm not. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Cool. Yeah, and you gave me, some really good advice and things to think about just like during the construction. Some of the things that I had already known from building my 2.4, which is organization is key. I have a whole layout with all of my fasteners, which are all still in the bags, organized by size so that everything's easy to find. One thing I did not do well that I would really recommend is also organize your printed parts.
Yes.
Because it's really a drag when you're digging through one box of parts to find that one thing. So if you're printing your own parts, you might want to consider sort of organizing into like major sub-assemblies or that kind of thing to make it easier. And then, obviously, if you've got a piece of granite or a really super flat build surface, makes it so much easier to square your frame. But one of the things that you pointed out was how cool it is to, if you can, to organize your mods before you start your build. Because, for example, I had never thought of the fact I'm going to be getting, I'm using the rainbow matchsticks that I'm going to mount where Xivi has her daylights here on the bottom. You can run the wires through the underneath of this extrusion and then sort of over the mid-deck plate. Much easier to do before you put the deck plate in. So if you're doing mod wiring into the build chamber, if you know that you're going to do it, think about how to do that wiring before you actually get done the build, because it's going to be so much easier to run all those wires through the extrusion channels, then put my deck plate in. Especially, I'm going to do one of the Pi cameras on, that's mounted in the back on top of one of the Z extrusions. And I really don't want to take that FFC cable, especially because I'm using our ACM panels. I don't want to run that FFC cable over the edge of the CNC'd piece of aluminum. So I've already got that cable mounted and ready to go so that I can just pull it out of the way and drop the panel in.
Yeah, I can say from experience, it's much easier the first time. I didn't wire my daylights nor my rainbow matchsticks until after I had been done with my build for the most part. And so it was very finicky getting the wires through the extrusions. I had to actually cut ferrules that I had just put on a couple of hours before just to get them back through. So definitely recommend planning that ahead. And that's the same for like any of your mods, really. Especially with V0, you don't have sort of the forgiveness that the slide-in T-nuts with the bigger printers have. 2020 extrusions, these 1515s, like even if you have the LDO slide-in T-nuts, it's still finicky. So if you can put them in, knowing what mods you have, like if you're going to do handles, if you're going to do anything mounted in terms of like Nevermores, anything like that, plan that ahead and try to figure it out like before you start your build, because otherwise you're going to be taking things apart to put in nuts, and that's nobody likes that. So
yeah, and it's something that's really well known that you have to preload your nuts. Pay attention to the manual where you have to preload your nuts. And I just made the mistake that apparently a lot of people make, which is I preloaded the nuts for the Z motor mount on the wrong side of the extrusion. And I was really happy that I have a bag of the slide-in nuts. But the thing with those slide-in nuts is they are not like the no-drop nuts, which will more or less stay in the same place. The slide-in nuts are really loose in the extrusion, so those are really handy if you forgot to preload a nut for something that's just going to always be attached. But you really can't count on them for like your side panels, because as soon as you take that screw out, that nut is just going to drop. Yeah. So yeah, always best to preload if you know that you're going to have something there, and triple check the manual. The V02 manual is really good. I just have no idea how I managed to preload the nuts on the wrong side.
And what I told Alan earlier today when he told me this was Like I actually watched like a build video during a lot of these parts of the build, and so that was one of those parts where I literally watched somebody while I was doing it do exactly what Alan did, and then realized it kind of later on and had to go back and tear some stuff down. So I was lucky enough to see that. So that was a recommendation, I think, that maybe people don't hear as often is hey, play a video of somebody actually building the thing, because you'll see like almost every V0 video, the builder does that, and you just forget to do those because it's just an easy one to overlook. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend doing that too. And there's lots of good tips that you wouldn't get from the manual. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like it. It's certainly more colorful than my build.
Yeah, I like wait until y'all see my Trident build. It's like neon version of this basically. But yeah, I like bright colors, so I did the orange extrusions. I regret that now because I'm still waiting on my V2 top pad extrusions from LDO. I didn't realize this was gonna be kind of a hard color to get in the future, so kind of bummed out about that. But I will eventually, here in the next few weeks, print out the new skirts in like natural ASA. So I'm excited to do that and add even some more color to it.
Cool.
It's gonna be snazzy.
Yeah, well, I'm going with more of the murdered out look. So here's how far I am, which is basically the physical construction, except for the top hat is done. So hopefully tonight I will start on the electronics, but yeah, it's all black, mostly all black. A couple little highlights here and there. It'll have a bit more color once I get the skirts in, because I did the 2-color skirts.
You did the gray, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the same gray metallic. But yeah, there was very little accent in my prints.
It's very clean though, like the black on black with just the hints of gray. It looks very professional. I don't know, looks like a professional Z0. Going to work.
Yeah, my little murder bot.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, get that down. But thanks for bringing your printer in and let everyone have a look at what you're doing, and thank you for all the help that you've given me as far as advice and things to look out for. It's definitely paying off during my build.
Yeah, well, and of course, let me know if you have more questions, because, yeah, there's a lot. You end up running into a lot of these, so...
Yeah, well, next week, like I said, hopefully will be the configuration, so... That'll be a whole nother fun thing where we all learned how to set up a Manta board.
Yeah, have fun with that. I'm happy that the Pico is very easy to get a config for, because I have enough editing to do as it is, and that is not my strong suit. So.
Cool. Well, thanks again. Yeah. And let us know if you have any questions or you have things that you would like to see us do videos on, and we'll see what we can do.